She demanded a cold glass at my father's wake. My father died suddenly. He was only 58. There was no warning, no time to prepare. Just one phone call, and everything changed. I don't live in my home country anymore, so when he passed, I flew back immediately to attend the funeral and to support my mother. I was 33 weeks pregnant at the time, so pregnant that the airline wouldn't even let me fly until my doctor signed a form approving it. That's how badly I needed to be there. After his death, our house filled up quickly. Friends, family, people coming to pay their respects. They shared memories. They cried with us. They sat quietly when words weren't enough. This went on for days. My dad passed at the end of December, and the funeral was in early January. Because of the holidays, almost everyone was off work. The house was never quiet. Most people were wonderful. They brought food, they brought drinks, they helped clean, and they supported us in every way they could. But then there was one person I'll never forget. I didn't even know her. She was the new girlfriend of one of my brother's friends. A complete stranger. Because I was pregnant and exhausted, I wasn't really part of the wake. I stayed in the kitchen instead, helping, cleaning, and loading and unloading the dishwasher. At one point, I had just taken out a fresh load of glasses. They were clean, still warm from the dishwasher. That's when she walked into the kitchen. Not quietly, not politely. She demanded a cold glass for her drink. Apparently, the clean glasses were too warm. Let that sink in. This was my father's wake. I was heavily pregnant, grieving, and standing in my childhood home. And a stranger was upset because her glass wasn't cold enough. She stood there waiting, as if this was a restaurant. As if I was staff. She was very lucky I was sober, because if I hadn't been, I might have told her exactly where she could put that warm glass. She was in her mid to late 20s. Old enough to know better. Old enough to show some grace. But instead, she chose entitlement. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just stood there, completely stunned. Even now, years later, I still laugh about it. Not because it was funny, but because sometimes people's behavior is so unbelievable. All you can do is shake your head. That was the day I learned something important. Some people walk into grief and still make it about themselves. So tell me, what would you have done in my place? Stayed quiet, or said exactly what you were thinking? This is Confession Chronicles. Real stories, real people, real moments you never forget.
I don't think my wife understands why I've been so quiet lately, why I feel empty. But I know something she doesn't. The moment I tell her the truth, our marriage will be over. I've been in therapy for the past year, not because I wanted to fix something small, but because I felt like I was disappearing. Inside my own life, session after session, I started uncovering things I had buried for years. My therapist finally gave it a name: anxious attachment. It means I put other people first, even when it hurts me. It means I silence my own needs, because I'm afraid of disappointing the person I love. And when I looked back at my life, the pattern was impossible to ignore. For 13 years, 8 of them married, I slowly erased myself to keep my wife happy. I told myself it was love. I told myself compromise was what good partners do. But deep down, it was fear. Fear of conflict. Fear of abandonment. Fear of being seen as selfish. So every time our needs clashed, mine stepped aside, again, and again, and again, until I barely recognized who I was anymore. Then came the realization that broke me. I never wanted kids. Not truly. But my wife did. She wanted them desperately. She talked about it constantly. She dreamed about it. And instead of being honest, instead of saying, "This isn't what I want," I convinced myself I could change. I convinced myself love would be enough. So I said yes, even though everything inside me was screaming no. Here's the part that hurts the most. I love my kids. I love them deeply. I would do anything for them, protect them, fight for them. They didn't ask for this. But loving them doesn't erase the truth. This is not the life I wanted. And that realization fills me with guilt every single day. I look at my wife, and I see someone who got the life she dreamed of, the marriage, the family, the future. Then I look at myself and feel like a guest in my own life. A man who stayed silent, For so long, that silence became his identity. I know what would happen if I told her, if I sat her down and said, I need to tell you something. That will change everything. She wouldn't hear honesty. She would hear regret, betrayal, rejection, and maybe she wouldn't be wrong. So I stay quiet. I show up. I smile. I play my role, while something inside me slowly breaks, because how do you tell someone you love that the life you built together is the very thing destroying you? Every day, I carry this alone. Every day, it eats at me, and I don't know which choice is worse, living a lie for the rest of my life, or telling the truth and losing everything. Sometimes I wonder if loving someone means losing yourself, and other times, I wonder if that's the biggest lie we've ever been told. So let me ask you something. Is it better to stay silent, to protect your family, or to finally speak the truth, even if it costs you everything? Because some confessions don't just want to be heard, they want to be felt, and this one is tearing me apart. This has been Confession Chronicles. If this story felt personal, you're not alone. Like, comment, and share your thoughts, because sometimes the hardest confessions are the ones we never say out loud. I ran into my school bully today, and I realized something I wasn't prepared for. I never got my happy ending. I was standing in line at a random grocery store after work, half exhausted, half zoned out, staring at one of those pointless gum displays you only notice when your brain shuts off. And then I heard my last name, said out loud, not in an adult voice, not casually, but in that old sing-song tone kids use, right before they're about to be cruel. I froze. I turned around, and there he was. Same guy who made middle school feel like a daily humiliation ritual. Same guy who called me ghost because I was pale and quiet. Same guy who kicked my backpack down the stairs. Same guy who once dumped my binder into a trash can and told everyone I smelled like wet paper. I remember laughing along, because laughing was safer than crying, and crying only made you more of a target. Those moments have replayed in my head for years, like if I reviewed them enough, I could edit them into something less pathetic. But there he was, smiling, genuinely happy to see me, eyebrows up, casual, bright smile. Oh my God, hey, it's been forever. He said my name correctly. Somehow, that almost felt worse. He asked where I'd been. I mumbled something about moving away for college and coming back. He nodded like we were just two old classmates who lost touch, like none of the other stuff happened. He asked about my family, said he remembered I was really good at art, even joked about how our town never changes. I could smell his clean laundry detergent, or cologne, or whatever adults smell like when their lives are put together. And it messed with my head, because it didn't match the kid I remembered. Then he said it, very casually. I was such an asshole back then. Sorry if I ever gave you a hard time. That was it. Not specific, not heavy, not honest, just tossed out, like a pebble into a pond. And I waited. I waited for my moment, the movie scene where I finally feel powerful, or relieved, or angry. I waited for tears, or satisfaction, or something. Instead, my brain just shut a door. I smiled, because my body knows how to be polite, even when I'm falling apart. And I said, yeah, it was a while ago. That was my big line. He paid for his groceries, patted my shoulder like we were buddies, and walked out, just like that. I sat in my car afterward, staring at the steering wheel, until my hands stopped shaking. I hated myself for being nice. I hated myself for not telling the truth. And I hated myself even more for still caring, because he clearly doesn't. He gets to be a normal adult who apologizes in one sentence and goes home and sleeps peacefully. I get to carry around a whole closet full of old shame that still fits me perfectly. I always imagined closure, as this clean snap, like a thread breaking. Turns out it's more like realizing. The thread has been wrapped around your ribs, and you've been breathing around it for years. I drove home with groceries I don't even remember buying, and one thought kept looping in my head. If this is what winning looks like, kind of sucks. So let me ask you this. Have you ever imagined a moment that was supposed to heal you, only to realize it didn't? This is Confession Chronicles. Sometimes there's no justice, no speech, no clean ending, just survival. And maybe learning that surviving was never weak at all.
I still remember the look on her face. That moment when realization finally hit her. The moment she understood. Her son had no economic leverage in this relationship. For years, she carried this quiet but very loud assumption that her son was the provider, that he was financially supporting me, that I was living off him. But the truth? It was the other way around. Everything, the home, the accounts, the responsibilities, were in my name. She had spent so long trying to label me a gold digger, waiting for proof that I was using her son, only for that narrative to completely blow up in her face. And I won't lie. There was a strange satisfaction in that moment. But also sadness. Because I never planned to be here. I never intended to become the first woman in my family to carry this kind of financial weight alone. It's a sign of changing times, I know. But it still hurts. What hurts even more is knowing why this happened. She caused so much chaos in his life, so much interference, so much control, that she didn't just damage our relationship, she completely sabotaged her own son. Yet somehow she still felt entitled to disrespect me. Why? Because in her mind, her son was supposed to be the provider. She believed that raising a son in a disempowered world meant one day collecting a reward, a future where he would finally feel powerful by controlling his daughter-in-law. She expected submission. What she got was reality. And reality doesn't care about outdated beliefs. So let me ask you this. Do you think some parents confuse love with control and entitlement with respect? If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. You're not alone here. This is Confession Chronicles, where real stories remind us that truth always finds its way to the surface. I honestly don't understand what my husband's ex-wife wants anymore, and if I'm being truthful, I'm exhausted. We divorced when our child was only 3 years old. There was no cheating, no big dramatic betrayal. I was just tired. Tired of doing everything alone. After the divorce, custody fell completely on me. He saw our child once a week. Once. All the responsibility stayed with me, while he got to be the fun weekend parent. Life moved on. He got a girlfriend. I eventually got a job. And that's when I needed help. He didn't work afternoons, so I asked him to take care of our daughter during that time. Her father, taking care of his own child. Apparently, that made me the problematic ex in his girlfriend's eyes. As if asking a man to parent his own child was some kind of crime. Fine. I accepted the title. If being problematic meant making sure my daughter was cared for, then so be it. Later, when I found another job, I stopped taking my daughter over there. Not because I couldn't, but because I knew myself. I was tired of watching another woman treat my child like an inconvenience, like she was a burden. So for years, we went back to the same pattern. Weekend father. Nothing more. A few years ago, they had a child together. Then about a year ago, they broke up. And just like that, he became a weekend father again. Only this time, to her child. The irony? She and I attend the same pottery class, and now she uses that time to complain about him to me. She tells me how much it hurts that he isn't present for her son, how unfair it is, how no child deserves that kind of father. And all I can say is, my daughter didn't deserve it either. But here we are. Is my ex useless? Yes. But she knew he was useless. She watched it happen with my child. She saw, with her own eyes, exactly what kind of father he was. She still chose him. She still had a child with him. So I honestly don't understand what she wants from me now. Sympathy? Validation? An alliance against the same man she willingly built a life with? I've already lived this story. I survived it. And I refused to join an anti-him club just to help her process a future she saw coming. Do you think shared pain should automatically create solidarity? Or is everyone responsible for the choices they willingly make? Some lessons are taught gently, others are repeated loudly. But the hardest truth to accept is realizing you were warned and chose the path anyway. If this story resonated with you, you're not alone. I didn't plan to end my relationship right before Christmas. I didn't plan to cancel a Christmas trip that had already been paid for, already imagined, already wrapped in expectations. But sometimes life doesn't wait for the calendar to be convenient. I'm a 35-year-old man. She's 37. We'd been together about 8 months. Long enough to be serious. Long enough to talk about plans. Long enough to believe we were building something real. She's divorced. Her ex-husband had been out of the picture for a year. At least, that's what I thought. That night, she came over like any other night. Nothing felt off. No tension, no warning signs. Then her phone lit up. A text. From her ex-husband. I didn't say anything at first, but she noticed my face change. She quickly opened the thread and said, "Look, it's just him texting me." I didn't respond. That alone felt strange. Why explain so fast unless there's something to hide? So I asked her something I never thought I'd ask anyone. "Can you check your recently deleted messages?" She hesitated. Just a second. But it was enough. She opened them. The entire conversation was there. Every message, every reply. Turns out he'd reached out because he was in rehab. He needed someone to talk to, and that someone was her. I read quietly, trying to stay calm, trying to be fair, until I saw it. One message, just 3 words. "I know, baby." My stomach dropped. That wasn't sympathy. That wasn't concern. That wasn't neutral. That crossed a line I had never agreed to share. In that moment, something inside me shut off. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I didn't argue. I just knew. I told her I was done. I canceled everything. The trip, the plans, the future I thought we were heading toward. I walked away. To me, it wasn't about jealousy. It wasn't about control. It was about boundaries. Call me old-fashioned, but "I know, baby" isn't something you say to someone you're supposedly finished with, especially not when you're in a new relationship. She didn't take it well. She said I was overreacting. She said it was harmless. She said I ruined her Christmas. She made me feel like I was the villain for refusing to tolerate something that felt deeply disrespectful. Then she showed up at my house, unannounced, demanding to talk. Standing there like I owed her closure, like I owed her understanding, like I owed her forgiveness. All I felt was exhaustion. Because when trust cracks, it doesn't matter how loud someone explains themselves. The damage is already done. People online had opinions, strong ones. Some said she was just being human, that he was her ex-husband, that caring doesn't disappear just because divorce papers are signed. Others said I did the right thing, that emotional boundaries matter just as much as physical ones. And honestly, I still don't know. All I know is this. I refuse to be in a relationship where I feel like a placeholder, where I wonder if I'm competing with someone from the past who still has emotional access. Maybe I reacted too fast. Or maybe I finally reacted before ignoring a red flag I would regret later. Either way, Christmas came and went. So did she. And I'm left asking myself a question that I still don't have an answer to. Was I protecting my boundaries? Or did I let my pride destroy something that could have been worked through? Sometimes the hardest part of love is deciding what you're willing to accept and what you're finally brave enough to walk away from. If you were in my position, what would you have done?